So I'm Christina. I am a data scientist and I run a marketing consultancy that focuses on data analytics for marketing and startup growth. And so working with nonprofits, smaller nonprofits to get into their face about how do I get this idea off the ground and collaborating and having that in a space and having that case study on a website that tracks to specific keywords that are low-hanging fruit really could bring you those minimum traffic that you need to get that brand awareness starting to increase about you, and then you can better target people to get them onto the platform. And so doing that and doing targeted newsletters, I always say, like, you guys have a newsletter and it's about people already on the platform, but I would also consider starting one that's about people not on the platform. Like if I'm trying to get someone onto it, like let's go into like an e-commerce space.
Right.
Let's say I am a wellness dietary supplement. If I'm always sending the sales email, that's not really going to convert anyone to my product and it's going to get annoying. But if I find out, which this is a use case that has happened to me, but find out that bodybuilders really enjoy this particular item and there's not a lot of people marketing to them, right? But I know that they really enjoy this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sponsor a bodybuilding newsletter that's going to tell them the events, the people getting the awards. I could interview the bodybuilder. And so I'm building brand recognition in that space. I'm sponsoring events in that space so that they can get to know me. And I'm not really selling them anything yet. Sure. And I'll be their first of mind when it's time to sell them. But if you really dig into the search trends and even run a few basic Facebook ads to see if they can segment out people who are actually interested in something, who are reading your initial content about what the app does, you can really hone into a target audience that you didn't know you had that might be cheaper than a broad range audience. And so if you take take that time to experiment, and people think they know their target customer. I always say your target customer probably doesn't want to use you right now. You're just too small. They want other things. You want who's going to be that first mover. And it's not always your target customer. It's going to be your first moving customer. And they're just not the same. The person who will start a beta product is not the same person who will use an established one. And so you want to find a niche who will use you at that beta phase so that you can get off the ground and then hopefully stay with you, but also you can transition into your actual customer.
Right, because word of the mouth, right? And then establish authority. But I mean, thank you so much for on the call about using Thesparkone as a case, but you actually mentioned about exactly the symptoms where we have gone through that. We're still struggling that, right? But I think I love what you say. This your ultimate target customers versus the kind of early adopters may not fit for that. But people love to try new things, and then how do you leverage, right? It's about leverage. Leverage the people's enthusiasm, interest. They also get a win through this journey because they feel like, I've been the early adopter on this platform, and then they also learn something through this, and then their voice being kind of amplified through your channel.
I
think that that will be I don't know, it may be this sounds to me a co-promotion or co-creation type of the campaign going on.
Exactly. So there's a book called Raving Fans that you should definitely read, but the Millennial Generation, which is people under the age of, I want to say 37, maybe a little bit older, to a little bit younger than me. We were raised on the internet. Like we were raised in that transitional period to the internet. And so our marketing style, like what we like to see, is going on the journey with the brand. And so for our generation, especially if that's your target market, finding the first movers who will always stay and always promote your product, creating that raving fans, is what we like to go on that journey, because we've been in a world of immense business creation. And so we have our favorite brands. We have the internet to see you build your journey out, to see you working, to see you doing your podcast. And so our generation really likes that. When you go a little bit older, like my mom's generation, Gen X, they didn't have that. And so the internet is scary for them. And so if your target customer, is going to be someone more established in their career, someone who's almost probably at executive level or will soon be at executive level, then your marketing can't be that way. They like discounts. Millennials don't care so much for discounts. We care for the brand quality, the mission, what's happening. But that generation was coupon clippers. They got their Sunday newspaper, they clipped coupons. They had all of the old TV show type stuff.
Right,
and so
that's true.
What they need from you to want to buy from you is 100% different. Or boomers, a new area of marketing is they have the most disposable income. And so if you really want the C-suite established or retired, that's going to be your boomer generation. People with actual money to either start their next business because they've been doing it, people who have money to spend on their grandchildren. Your marketing is going to look different. And one of the biggest errors that people make when targeting them would be talking about their age. Like boomers feel young, they're full of life, they're traveling the world, they have all the money to spend. They'll go to all of the fancy stuff, and you just have to make them feel like you understand what they want. And so spend some time on boomer YouTube. Like there's boomer YouTube, like you can find older people making videos, and you're just like and understand them.
Let's talk about website, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like because we also have a website. I'm on the journey about, because we are so like product driven, so our heads on the product. But now we're kind of say, you know what, even you have a great product, but you have a problem about people access to that, right? Like today,
Right.
How do you reach them? How do you establish that kind of a channel? Even we have a website, but we don't know how the website is performed. So maybe
Right.
you can highlight a little bit, what are different measurements, or maybe the certain kinds of a checklist you have typically help people about in order to improve the website performance. Maybe you talk about a little bit on that.
Okay. So I think for you, it's definitely a two-part question. You have a website and you have an application. And so the key for the website to get more users to the website to know that you exist would be kind of trying to figure out, and I always start with this, like the lowest hanging fruit when it comes to keyword searches. So Google has a free keyword tool. You can get a 7-day subscription to something that does search engine marketing, and figure out what are the cheapest words that people are using to search for something similar, a product similar to that what you're offering. And let's say they have all the big keywords everyone's using, and those are $3 or $4. Well, if you go for the lowest hanging fruit, they probably only have between 50 and 100 people searching in a month, but you're growing up. That's okay for you. You can spend 50 cents to get in front of these guys and get them onto your platform with curated content that makes them want to know more about you. And I always say it's a content game. Like if you go for the lowest hanging fruit, you want to make sure that you're answering whatever question they have and giving them access to your app, not necessarily 100% selling, because it takes time for people to get to know you, for them to want to interact with you. So I always say the first thing I tell startups is figure out what is the cheapest keywords you can buy. Yes, it's not going to be thousands of people seeing your ad, but those few hundred are what you need to get that activity onto your website and get them into your application. And so the next thing I always focus on is that onboarding experience. If it's hard to sign up for your app, to find where to sign up, to download your app and all of that, people aren't going to do it. They'll go through the process and they stop. And so I would say your onboarding experience, even though the app might not be what you wanted, it needs to be top notch. Because if you get their email and get them on, you can often get them back to the platform with promotions. And so your onboarding experience is like the next key point in the process. And then if you're in the app store, there are what they call custom metrics and dimensions that match your first business goal. And so normally, I think with your type of business, your app that you have is you need daily active users or monthly active users.
Right. DAU, MAU, that kind of metric.
Exactly. And so you need to set up that type of metric in the back end of your Google apps that track what pages are they viewing, who are they viewing on this application. And there's analytics softwares you can install on your application for startups specifically that are apps. On your website, you can do a lot of this for free in Google Analytics. If you have someone who is knowledgeable about Google Analytics to set up some basic things for you. I always say you don't need a lot of money at this stage. You just need someone knowledgeable to come in and help you pinpoint the first few steps within the free technologies and then upgrade.
I love that.
Right, like you don't have to spend a lot of money to get an app off the ground. You just have to have the right strategy and understanding about how the platforms work. And so with needing to understand your DAU, you really need to understand, when are they stopping to use your platform? When are they most active on it? And how can you fix that gap? How can you bring what's needed? And not oftentimes, it's not necessarily bringing more customers, it's fixing a feature or something that's messed up and then remembering that your app exists. And so it has to be put into their daily app workflow. Exactly. And so you have to build that habit of them needing to use it. So why are they coming every day to your app so that they can use it? And if it's not in the habit, if they don't need it for work, like LinkedIn these days is for work. I go on to talk to someone because I have an interview or
right. Just check it.
Right. Slack is needed every day for work. Right. Facebook is needed to connect with your family. Uber is needed to get around town. And so if there's nothing in your application that is required in their workflow, it's very easy to forget. So how can you bring that one thing into your app that keeps them on there? And that might be changing a little bit differently from your overall initial vision to become something else, but that's okay, because if you can get the customers on, you can become what you actually want to become.
Exactly.
And so you need to identify what page or length of time are they spending on your app, how many minutes at that time, track all of it. Because if they're coming in and they're not posting anything, but they're in every day, well, that's one thing. You want to get them to post. But two, if they're sign up when you gave them the sign up and for some reason they're not coming back after several days, there needs to be an intervention. That can be an email, that could be a notification. I play online games, so like every day this online game that I play is like, have you played the game today? And I was like, I was just on 5 minutes ago, so this notification is horrible, but it's there to make sure that you remembered that app was on the phone.
Right.
And so you need to figure out what that is and how to get them back and how to create an environment that makes them want to stay.
Right, kind of a feedback loop, right?
Exactly. Where you break out a certain part to test in that feedback. Right. Once you get that response that you want, you text the next aspect in that
Absolutely.
feedback.
I think that will be every app driven, because your main product is the app, and then how customer experience is through the product experience, and then you want to give them the best, and then they actually succeed and enjoy, which is your succeed, right?
Exactly.
So I think that's how the startup founders, including me, have to kind of always think about it. We have different ways about I call that building the connection with the customer, right? Because customer may want to just read your content, because they're at the stage about just familiar with you. And then sometimes they say that, I want to be proactively start using that. I think that's the moment we have to shorten the time frame from like the learning phase, discover phase for them, till they become activated users. So I think that you offer the strategy to people. I think that's I consider that strategy are so precious and valuable for startup case. I think that a lot of the materials or free kind of online, self-allocated courses are more for like established, mature, how do you growth based on that, right? But just because of because market has never heard about your product, and then you are also in a journey about figure out the best message by hook them in, right? And like you say, you gotta anticipate you're gonna fail, you're gonna try it again. I think velocity matters a lot here in the startup case. So thank you for sharing those data-driven strategy. I think the startup founder can understand that it's not a big effort of the work for them. I think you also said that you can quickly establish the basic, right? If you don't have a basic, you miss the opportunity. But it is establish basic, and then those are tactics, or digital way, which is automatically build up your user base.
Exactly.